Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bootcamp Blueprint, the place where personal trainers go to grow their fitness business. I'm super excited this week because we have one of the premier, if not the premier, fitness business coaches in Australia. This person specializes in taking fitness professionals from mildly successful to wildly successful. And he's the owner of one of the most popular groups on Facebook there for fitness professionals, the Fit Pro Mastery. So I'm very excited to introduce a fellow Australian. Without further ado, the one and only Mr. Pete Tansley. Pete, how are you?
What an intro, man. I'm stoked to be here. It's good to be here and good to be on the show.
Yeah, well, I'm super excited to hear your expertise there, Pete. Just before we dive into it, I like to start all my podcasts off with a quote or mantra that inspires you or fires you up. Have you got one for us?
Oh, man, I think for me, it's like this idea that we only really have 4,000 weeks roughly to live on this planet. And for a lot of people, they might be doing the numbers on that. They might be thinking, crap, I don't have many left. But that to me is a constant reminder to be like, to be pushing forward, like to be growing week on week and pushing forward week on week. Because if you look at that 4,000 Mondays, it's not that many, right? So you may as well be doing what you love and chasing some big goals.
Yes, I love that. Huge fan of that myself, right? You look at the years, I don't want to give away my age here, but, I see my age and I was like, man, it feels like it wasn't that long ago I was this age here. If I want to have the life I want to have, I better get a move on it, right? So I
100%, mate. Yeah, for sure.
I love that. So, hey, Pete, what I'd like to talk about today, let's say my audience doesn't know who you are and they're like, who is this guy? What does he do? Where did he come from? I would love it if you could just share your story, your experience in the fitness industry. And along the way, I'm sure there's going to be a whole heap of gold nuggets, things that you've figured out and you're like, wow, this is amazing. And, we can stop and expand on those and say to my listeners, hey, this is what Pete found. So if you're listening to this, here's a good way to do it. And probably the flip side as well. I'm sure along your career, you've probably fucked up a time or two, right? And it's probably cool to, if you've not watching the video, but you should have seen Pete's face there. I think it's more than a time or two, right? So there are also good stories to tell as well, because if you're listening to this, instead of you going out and making that mistake and, losing some dollars or wasting some time, hey, you can just hear the story of someone else that's made that mistake and make sure that you don't make it and learn from that there. So is that cool with you, Pete, if we just hear your story for the next 30 minutes or so?
For sure, my man. Happy to share. Let's do this.
Awesome. Well, start wherever you want to start. I'm happy if you start it a couple years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I don't know how old you are, 30 years ago, but start wherever you want to start and let us know.
For sure. All right, man. Well, let's rewind. The year was 2002, and I was coming to the end of my high school career or time in high school, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I went to a great school, but that school pushed university, med school, law school, and that just wasn't for me at the time. So I guess I was a little bit lost. I'm definitely not, I wasn't ambitious or goal-driven back then. And at the time, as most 16, 17-year-old males, we were interested in basically a couple of things: sport and women, right? And me at that age, I was heavily into sport, played, rugby to high level, was a swimmer, a surfer, living on the Gold Coast. But I just wasn't getting female attention. So like most guys that age, what do? Well, you turn to a physical transformation to sort of, in a hope to get more conversations with women. Now, at that age, I joined a gym. And it sort of perplexed me that at the time, I was doing something before school every day, whether surfing or swimming or weights training with the rugby team. Of an evening was 4 to 5 nights a week of rugby training. But I was like, why can't I look fit? So I joined a gym. And for the first time ever, I learned about diet, about fat loss, about, looking better physically, and went through a physical transformation. Now, it was about this time when school came to an end and school leaves was over, and I was like, what am I going to do here? And one of the staff in the gym suggested that they're looking for some trainers. Why don't I apply? And, it's funny, man. This was 2002. This was pre, I know you've been around a while as well, but this was pre-Fitness First, Good Life. It was very primitive in Australia. There were big, sporting clubs that had tennis, squash, Les Mills, water aerobics, but there was no sort of boutique gyms. There definitely weren't any PT studios. They were very rare. So I applied for this job and I got rejected. They didn't hire me. They suggested I go to TAFE to become a personal trainer. So back then it was a 12-month degree, certificate, Cert 3 into Cert 4. And at the end, you had to do 80 hours of work placement. Now, it's funny today, trainers complain about having to do a couple of days, but back then it was 80 hours of unpaid work placement. So I finally get a job at this gym. I do my 80 hours unpaid. I was working at night. I was out of home at that stage. I was working at night to pay the bills. And I got a job at the gym, but the first job was cleaning toilets. And I had this shift on Sunday morning. And it's funny, man, and this gym, it was a university on the Gold Coast, a private university. And the university partied a lot because these students would fly in from the US and they would just spend a semester partying. So my job would be to open the gym on Sunday morning, 6 a.m. And the gym was attached to the swimming pool and the big spa, the big jacuzzi, which for some reason ran all night. The power didn't switch off. So as you can imagine, these university parties, they would often end up in the spa. So my job was to arrive on a Sunday morning and kick these people out of the spa. And let's just say that the things I saw in that spa, I never jumped in there again. All right. You can imagine with a bunch of 18-year-old college students. So that was my first taste in the industry, was cleaning toilets, was on the reception. And I didn't know it at the time. I actually spent 6 years at that job. I didn't know it, but that was my apprenticeship. I was literally cleaning mirrors, built up to answering incoming phone calls. This was pre-Facebook, pre-internet, really. And man, I remember the first full day of that placement, and the gym manager said, "Pete, I want you to spend 8 hours talking to people." And I thought he was joking. I was like, "That's funny, but like, what will I really do?" And he said, "No, you're going to spend 8 hours on the gym floor today." And man, I was like 71 kilos. I was kind of skinny fat, still my height like 6'1", but just like this rake. And I was one of the most shy kids in my school. So for me to like approach strangers and like talk shit about bench press or the weather or the NRL was just like so out of that was one of the scariest days of my life. And I used to go to the bathroom to hide. And like just sit there to like breathe, and for an introverted kid like me to build up the courage to go and talk to people again. So it was there, man, that I fell in love with the industry. I never wanted to be a trainer at that age. I never wanted to be in business at that age. It was like this reluctant thing of like, I got myself in shape. I realized that was a job. I went to TAFE, 12 months, 80 hours of placement, and then I eventually got a job cleaning toilets and kicking naked people out of the spa.
Awesome.
I mean, that's where it started. So, and then that's where my PT career really was born. That was 2003. I began renting space at that gym and essentially running my own business from that age onwards, and had a fantastic time there. In addition to that, I was teaching like group aerobics, deep water running. This is the Gold Coast, so 51 weeks of the year. It was beautiful. And man, I really learned a lot about everything. But the thing I fell in love with the most was sales. How do we influence? How do we sell? For a shy kid like me, that skill didn't come easily. And I think for anyone listening who's been told that you need the gift of the gab or you need to be naturally extroverted is a myth. And often that can be a downfall in selling because it's all about them, when really selling, it's all about the seller, when really all about the prospect. And I think for fellow introverts on this podcast, that can be a main strength in business and a strength in sales.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. So, all right, I like this story so far, Pete. So that's a great way we know how you've got into the industry there. What was the next step from there? Judging from the age of things, you're in your mid-30s at the moment, is that right?
Correct, yeah.
Cool. So run me through the next sort of 5, 10, 15 years. What happened there once you're in the gym now, you're paying rent, you started this PT business? What happened from there?
Yeah, man. So this was such a steep learning curve for me. The beauty of this university was there were academics, there were professors, and there were a lot of the prospects. So quite quickly, the first thing I came up against was I was 19, maybe 20, but I looked about 13. I looked incredibly young. I would shave literally once a year because I didn't have any facial hair. I just looked like a baby. So the first thing that I had going against me was lack of authority. And people would dismiss me as being young, this skinny kid. What does he know what he's talking about? So studying influence and sales was like a lifesaver for me. The first thing I had to do was get over my shit around money. To me at that age, I grew up middle class, but money, I believed at that time was hard to come by. So the fact of me asking for somebody for $50 a session, to be honest, scared the shit out of me. And the first thing a mentor told me to do was to invest in my own trainer. Why? Because then I would appreciate handing money over. I was in the shoes of a prospect, and I think a lot of young PTs coming through now have never hired their own PT. And that's one of the best things you can do. Find the best PT in your area, invest in them for 3 months or 6 months, and ask them, rack their brain. How do you do pricing? How do you work the gym floor? How do you do this? How do you structure things? That can be your first mentor that you will pay for, but you will learn more in that space than anything else.
Yes, I can we expand?
So I stayed there for 5 years.
Oh, awesome! Can we expand on
just stop me whenever? Yeah,
a few points, because you just hit on some really, really good gold nuggets that I want to expand even more on. And the first one was that trainer there, investing in the trainer. I think there's 2 real major benefits from that. The first benefit is just the learning, the mentoring side of it. Go and find the best trainer. You're getting a hands-on experience. Okay. And you can get the best trainer in 2 ways. You may even get 2 different trainers. You might find the best trainer who's the best on the business and sales side of things. You might find, hey, I want to find the busiest trainer, and I want to see, how does this busier trainer do it? What can I learn from this person here? But you also might go the other way. Okay, hey, I want my specialty to be in bodybuilding. Great. I'm going to find the best trainer that's in bodybuilding. How does he program there? And the third benefit to that as well is you sort of see how a trainer works. I was the same. When I started in the industry, I'd never hired a trainer before. And now I had to train someone else. How do you train someone else? I don't know. I've never trained them before. So it was quite, it was a good experience there. And then the other thing as well is just the payment side of things. Like, that's one thing that I found a lot easier for me to sell. My background's more in boot camp, and I used to charge $50 a week for boot camp. And same thing, I'd be like, oh, $50 a week for boot camp, it's a bit expensive, right? And I get it if someone says it's too expensive, they don't have the money, because I was training myself at the time. As soon as I invested in like a strength and conditioning studio as a participant, I was like, hey, there's a studio down the road. It's exactly what I like doing. It's $50 a week. You know what? I'm going to do it. So I signed up for that there. As soon as I did that, it was way easier for me to make sales there because there was no excuse. Someone's like, oh, $50 a week, that's a lot for boot camp, right? I could be like, well, yeah, look, depends how you look at it. It's what I pay, and I'm a trainer, really. And then I even went further. And then I actually hired a one-on-one trainer. So I was paying about $150 a week. And then as soon as someone came with that price objection, oh, $50 a week for boot camp, it's a lot of money, isn't it? It depends how you look at it. Me personally, I spend $150 on my health and fitness, and it's just a lot more congruent. So I love that you've brought up there. And then I just wanted to ask you a question there, Pete. You said that you studied a lot about the sales and influence side of things. I'm super curious myself, and I'm sure my listeners would love to know as well. How did you go about that? Did you hire a sales coach? Are there specific books that you read? Are there articles? Where did you learn the sales and influence side of things?
Yeah, man, great question. It was actually at that time I came to my first ever sort of motivational seminar. I was up here in Brisbane. An Australian guy was running it, and he said, first you've got to learn, then you can earn. And for me, like probably a typical rugby jock in school, I didn't read a lot of books. I would talk to other people who had read the books and remember enough for the test and then move on, right? So for me to now link, and I think this is where, if they taught young men and maybe some young women that learning would boost your business, learning would be linked to income, studying. It's funny now, I teach my students copywriting. I was like, man, if my English teacher could see me now, right? Like wagging English class in year 12. But I think for me, I instantly saw, and this is a key thing in advertising, I saw an element of proof that a successful person in front of the room was telling me that learning would be linked to business success. And it planted this seed. So I started reading. I asked him for books, and that first book he said was How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, my favorite.
And I'm shocked that book isn't at least taught in school, but definitely isn't taught in PT school.
It's if you're listening to this, so that's actually my favorite book, Pete. I like you so much more that you've brought that up there. So Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, literally changed my life. And the funny thing is, I believe that book's like 100 years old.
Mm,
I think it was
yeah.
published in like 1915, over 100 years, and it's those principles are just so steady. So I love that you've brought up this. That's an awesome tip for anyone listening. If you haven't read that book, go out and read it now. And then continue on with your story there, Pete. So you've learned the sales
Yeah.
and marketing, or you've learned the
So,
sales side. Yep. Sorry, you go.
yeah, that led to, guys like Brian Tracy, which led to Zig Ziglar and all these like
Mhm.
guys who were related in that time and have these, Jim Rohn, have these amazing philosophies which are timeless. And it was around this time that my confidence grew, my income grew, my lifestyle grew. I was a guy in my young 20s. All the people I was friends with at college, were earning nothing, and I was earning like a couple of grand, $3 grand a week sometimes. And I probably thought I was Bill Gates, like making that money in my young 20s. But then I started to get ambitious, right? Which is a fantastic gift. Didn't have that through school. It came to me late. And I thought, man, I'd love to open my own business one day. What do I need to do that? Hey, I'm studying at a university. Why don't I enroll to study business? Because I tied together in my head that qualification or letters after my name would give me the credentials and the knowledge to learn business. So enthusiastically, perhaps naively, I enrolled in a Bachelor of Commerce and Law. Now, it was about my third semester in at a private university that I think it was my second that I realized that, hang on a minute, I'm not learning from business people here.
Mm,
I'm learning from books.
mm,
I'm being spoken to for 3 hours at a time in a lecture, sitting down.
mm,
This is not my jam. And I
mm.
started asking some of even the professor of entrepreneurship had never had his own business.
Really?
So really. And none of the teachers in business had had their own business.
Mm,
So it took me about 10 seconds to realize that this is not for me. I dropped out. At the same time, I thought the manager of my gym was an idiot and I could do a better job. Like probably most employees think. We think the boss is off drinking cocktails and when they leave that their job's done. Little did I know that wasn't true, but that's what was my young thought. So I made the plan to open my own facility. Now here is where I tell this story often because people say to me, I'm just waiting to save up 20,000 or I need to save XYZ to open a facility. But what I did instead, I didn't have, I probably could have got credit at that age, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to get resourceful here. I'm going to see if my clients can help me.
mm.
At the time, I was sort of doing $50 a session for an hour. That was the going rate back then. And most clients would see me 2 or 3 times a week. So spending between, $4 to $6 grand a year. So I thought, what if I go to them with a plan? And I said, hey, instead of the $6 grand that you'd pay over the next 12 months, I want to give that to you for $3K. How does that sound? And they're like, well, yeah, what's the catch? I said, well, the catch is you'll have to pay in full.
Mm.
You get a written contract, you get 12 months with me, nothing will change, and we'll lock in that price. Now, I got 10 people to do that, which, based on the various amounts they were doing, got me about 27 grand cash in a week, which funded my first facility. Now, the year was 2008.
Ooh.
I leave the gym. I announce that I'm leaving. There's clients decide to come with me. And just as it opens, the global financial crisis hits, which I had no idea what that was about. But spending tended to dry up. And that's when I sort of ran into some trouble there around marketing. At first in the gym, there was 3,000 members there. Lots of them had spent big money to be at a private university. There was never an issue with leads. Now I was an unknown. With a facility in Burleigh Heads on the Gold Coast, and apart from those clients that came with me, I didn't have any other traffic. So at the time, man, this was pre-Facebook ads. At the time, the big thing was SEO. Everyone was pushing SEO and backlinks. You remember that? Where we'd all backlink to each other's site, and our site would hopefully be ranked higher. And I got into guys like Joe Polish,
Oh, yes.
some old school marketers, which led me to Frank Kern, Vedros Koulian, all these guys around at the time who were pushing long form copy, backlinks, lead boxes. I had like 50 lead boxes around the Gold Coast, all this old school stuff, right? And that was the launch of my first studio. It was a one-on-one. At the time, I wanted high end, so they came and they got a towel and a water bottle, and we had this, high-end one-on-one thing. We grew that pretty quickly. We expanded locations, and for the next sort of 6 to 8, 7 years that total, we did the one-on-one. We eventually switched to semi-private. We added retreats. We did 5 retreats in Bali, and we even had some online women's transformation stuff when Facebook ads launched. So it's evolution from one-to-one to semi-private to overseas retreats, and some online stuff started to happen then for me around 2009.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So that sounds like a pretty cool story so far there. Now, I'm curious, Pete, you now coach fitness business owners, right? When did that sort of come into things?
Man, that's funny. Like from very early on with my facility, I wanted to be a business owner. So from an early stage, my job was marketing and sales, and most of the fulfillment was done by a team of trainers. And I look back now, and the thing I loved the most about that facility was trainer development. Was like teaching my guys business, teaching them goal setting, like growing. The same passion I got from seeing a physical transformation with a client, I could now get through my team. And if I was taking some, often younger than me at the time, some kids who were new to the industry, and groom them and develop them, the heart got out of them, making a great income, learning to sell, growing in confidence, buying a new car, whatever the area of life they up-leveled, that to me is what got me out of bed each morning, right? So technically it started then, but it wasn't all smooth sailing. Along the way there, my girlfriend and I got married and had twins. At the time they were, but when they came, the relationship was a bit rocky, and it put some stress on the relationship. At the time, she was working in the business. I was running the marketing and sales. Not long after the twins arrived, we separated. And for me, it was a big turning point. My 20s had been like this upward momentum. Things were going great. Money was up, but that really hit me hard when that sort of ended quite abruptly. And it was at that point that I'd reached a turning point. I was looking back, probably depressed, and trying to call this on myself. And when we now had shared custody over some 6-month-old twins, I wanted to sort of reestablish where I was going. So this was 2013. The business lease was up for renewal, and I decided not to continue as the owner. So my GM basically, bought the business off me, and it kept going under his arm, and I took some time off, man. I took about 6 months off, reestablishing where I wanted to go. I think this was the universe's way of perhaps humbling me as a cocky 28-something-year-old at the time. This was the universe's way of maybe bringing me down a peg or 3 and keeping my ego in check. And man, it was a dark time. At the end of that 6 months, I was unsure what I wanted to do. So I actually moved back in with my mother. This was just a few years prior to that. I was, doing very well financially. Long-term girlfriend was pregnant with twins. Everything was exciting. So just 2 years later, having no income, no business, and what I built over those 8 years was now gone, and I had to move back in with mum, which is, for any dude who moved out when he's 18, it's a pretty kick in the nuts to have to do that. So from there, man, people were still coming to me. This is, Facebook was taking off now. People were still coming to me for business advice. And I thought, you know what? It's time. Like I'm out of savings now. I don't have any income. What am I going to do? I'm going to do the one thing I know how to do, which is PT. So I got a job at Fitness First. And with my tail between my legs, I went back in there as a, level 2, whatever they were called back then, as just as a contract PT. And I started from scratch. Everyone in there was doing one-on-ones, still selling 10 packs. I came in selling like a long solution, semi-private training. And man, what was really fun was I was back in my zone of genius. I was selling, I was helping people. That momentum was created again. And, pretty quickly I had like a full-time semi-private training business out of Fitness First. Now, what got me into coaching or even planted the idea is I went to a seminar. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Real Movement Project with Keegan Smith. I went to a seminar of his around that same time, and whilst the content was great, I could tell that maybe he needed some help on the business side of things.
Mm.
The BDM, getting people to show up for the event, the location, just the general operations. So with that relationship, I started working with Keegan as a partner in the Real Movement Project. What we ran then was weekend workshops, 12-month mentorships, and I helped to sort of played a small role in scaling that up and helping more people. And the role then became the coach. I was there for over a year. We helped 35 guys open a facility.
Wow.
Get it running, launch their marketing, learn how to sell. And yeah, man, that was a fantastic time. And it was then that I realized, like, I think I'm always going to be a coach. Whether I was coaching fitness as a chubby 18-year-old or now business as a near 30-year-old, like I felt my calling is coaching and leading and training people to succeed. So we parted ways roughly 2 years ago, and I went solo with my own, business coaching and consulting company. And the last 2 years, I've never looked back. Now we coach fit pros. Now we help them do all that kind of stuff, whether it's online or facility growth, and we help them to, be leaders in their niche and be leaders in their field.
Yes, I love that there. Well, hey, we've got a few minutes left on this, Pete. I've just got one question I'd like to finish up with that I think my audience would find super valuable. It is going to be quite a powerful question, so I'm not sure if you can summarize it in a few minutes, but do your best on this. My question would be, if you could narrow it down to the number one common roadblock that you see fit pros have. It's obviously going to be a little bit different for everyone, but what's the most common roadblock that you see fit pros have that are keeping them from being wildly successful? And if you could give them a common workaround. So if they're like, yeah, hey, that's me, what's a strategy that can work around them? Is that a question you can answer there, Pete?
For sure. Would love to. Now, without a doubt, this is mindset. People come to me, hey, Pete, I need help with my Facebook pixel. How do I do retargeting? How do I set up Instagram ads? And all of that is a tactical thing. Those things are tactical. I'm sure you and I can teach those very easily to our clients, to our students. What actually separates success, though, is the stuff up here, is the 6 inches between your ears. People say to me, Pete, I don't have a mindset problem. I say, cool, let's spend $10K this month on ads. Let's hire 3 staff this month. Let's expand to the USA. Now they run into mindset problems. So I think a couple of things are like at the root of these mindset issues. Number one, people say to me, oh, I'm just a personal trainer. I'm just a fit pro. I'm just a health coach. Man, for me, like fit pros are at the forefront of disease prevention, of the future of the country's health. Like I honestly believe that. Because by the time somebody goes to the GP or goes to the heart surgeon or has a stroke and sees a specialist, it's often too late, right? And for us at the forefront, dealing with everyday people, dealing with our clientele, dealing with prospects, that's when we can truly prevent and help a family's health. Not just one person, but they tell their husband, tell their kids, tell their colleagues. The outflow effect of that is massive. So mindset thing number one is not just to see yourself as just an anything. Is to realize the power we have. And number two is to we have to change identity. And I could talk all day about identity shift, but if we're earning, let's say we're earning 4K a month and our goal is to get to 10, 15, 30,000 per month, we have to shift identities so that it happens naturally. We have to become that person. We have to be that person from a core level. And only then will we catch up. And then the fixing the problem of the Facebook pixel or whatever the tactical thing is easy, because at that point, nothing will stop you. Nothing will stand in your way on your forward march to make more impact and help more people.
Yes, I love both those points. I'll just expand and give my 2 cents there because they're both such good points. The just thing, and I saw this on your Facebook, I believe. Did you make a post on your Facebook recently about that? Yeah, I saw that. And I'm just a huge fan of that. Even if it's not fitness, I don't care what you're doing. I don't care, because someone actually said it to me. They were a receptionist at a hotel. I was at the hotel kicking back and I was like, so what do you do? They're like, oh, I'm just the receptionist here. And even that, like, I don't think you're just anything. And Pete gave a wonderful way of how important it is to be a fit pro. But I could make an argument for whatever your occupation is, it's never just that occupation. There's something in there that you're doing where you're helping someone and you're giving them value. And it's a subtle thing, but it's a big thing for me. As soon as I hear someone say, "Oh, I'm just this," they're just losing all their power. And it's the same thing in a social setting. And it's funny now, like, I get offended if someone says that to me now. I was at a function the other day, and there was meant to be, like, 20 people at this function, and there were like two of us. And someone came and they're like, "Oh, it's just the two of you." And I was like, "Just the two of us? Hold on. What's wrong with the two of us? We're awesome, right?" It doesn't matter if there's 18 or there's 20. So that's just a powerful phrase with that. So if you're listening to this, get rid of that just thing there. And I love the identity shift as well. This happened to me the first time I made a big investment in my business. So my goal was always to make $1 million a year. It's like, that's what I want to do. I want to make $1 million in revenue a year. And I was speaking to a sales coach, and they had a program which cost $20,000 for the year. And I was like, "Ooh, $20,000, it's a lot of money, right?" And the sales coach was like, "Well, hold on. You just told me a second ago you want to make $1 million a year. If you're the type of person that makes $1 million a year, hey, a $20,000 investment on a sales coaching is a drop in the ocean. So make the choice. You can sit here and say it's too expensive, but then you're never going to make that million. Or if you flick that switch and you're like, okay, if I want to make $1 million a year, what would a person who makes $1 million a year do here?" So I love that switch there, because it just goes back to, if you do what you've always done, you're going to stay in that position. So you need to shift that identity. Hey, if this is my goal here, what would the person who's already earned, if it's a financial goal, what would the person who's already earning that financial goal do in this situation here? Great. That's what I'm going to do. So I love that there. But hey, Pete,
100%. I think my most gifted book we send to all students is Psycho-Cybernetics.
Oh, yes.
And, again, a book from about 3,000 years ago, is super old, but is even more relevant today. And I think for Fit Pros, that's such a first step. Yes, studying anatomy, physiology, macros is obviously a given, but if you're not working on the inner game, you're missing out, and that would be a great place to start.
Yes, and I think and the other thing as well, yes, for your business, also for clients getting results, because we've all seen it, right? As a Fit Pro, you can give two different people, and obviously there's different body types, but let's just assume they're the same. You could give two people the same diet, the same nutrition. One of them's going to get results, one of them isn't, often because it's what's in their head, right? One of them's like, okay, great. If I do that, one actually does it, and the reasons that they actually do it, it's so powerful there. But hey, Pete, we're coming to the end of the podcast here. I know you've got another one, so I'm going to leave you to it in a minute. Just a couple questions I like to finish off with. The first one's with mentors and books. Now, you've already dropped a few along the way. You've mentioned the Psycho-Cybernetics. You've mentioned the How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you could just give us another one or two of each. Who was one or two of your mentors, and then one or two extra books that my listeners should read or listen to?
Yeah, man. I think, mentors can be physical. I'm in multiple coaching programs right now. I think there's definitely benefit to that, but they can also be studying people of the past, studying the tycoons from hundreds of years ago, make us realize how freaking easy business is today. Back then, imagine trying to launch into the USA from Australia. It'd be 6 weeks on a boat to send one letter. It'd be 6 weeks back, and the ship could sink in a storm. Like today, we can launch an ad and have something up instantly. So I think studying the greats, literally the oil, the car tycoons, the steel tycoons from centuries ago, we can learn a lot from. A couple of books for marketing. Actually, one for sales. If you want to improve your sales, I think Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss is incredible about tonality, negotiating, influence. Obviously, Influence by Cialdini. And if someone wants an expensive but very, very good book on marketing, I would suggest Breakthrough Advertising. I think it's about $200 US. It was out of print for a long time. That is the Bible of marketing, in my opinion. And with those couple of influence ones are incredible. But yeah, I think you need to invest. You need to up level. You need to be around people who would be embarrassed at the level that your business is at to push you and to hold you to a higher standard.
Yes, I agree with that. Now, hey, Pete, thanks very much for your time. I'm sure a whole heap of my listeners are like, you know what? I like this Pete guy. I want to follow him. I want to see what's going on. So I've got a few of your socials here. I just want to double check them and make sure they're right. Your best website is thepetetansley.com.
Correct.
You've also got thepetesclass.com, where you've got a free workshop on there that Fit Pros can just watch for free and just listen to you talk for an hour about how they can scale their business.
That's right. That's Pete's Class. So my name, petesclass.com. That will direct you to the free training on demand.
Awesome. The best place for people to contact you on social is simply your personal Facebook profile, which is Pete Tansley.
Correct. Hit me up there. Yep.
Instagram as well. Should we follow you on Insta?
Instagram as well. I'm not as active there. I'm trying to scale that up. Most of our time and ad spend is on Facebook. But yeah, hit me up on Instagram as well. Same handle, Pete Tansley, one word, and you'll find me there as well.
Awesome. I'm going to put all these links in the show notes there, and people are welcome to drop you a DM if they've got any questions.
100%. Hit me up. I'll be happy to help. And yeah, especially your listeners, man, happy to help them all out.
Awesome. Well, hey, Pete, that's all we've got time for today. Just before I leave you to it, is there anything I should have asked that didn't, or anything that you want to finish us off with?
Man, I think you've covered a lot of aspects really, really good. I'm obviously pro mentorship from back in those early days. I'm pro learning. And I think the biggest thing is if you're naturally shy, naturally not good at sales or marketing, they're learnable skills. And I think anything in our game is learnable to take you to the top.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. And if you want to learn some of those skills, Pete, I'm guessing you're a good man to go to?
100%, guys. Hit me up. Any questions? I'll be happy to help. And if I can't, I'll refer you to someone who can.